My name is Mimi Allen, and I'm an artist. I live in the United States, in Seattle, Washington. I was born in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. And I came on a long journey to arrive here in Europe and do an art project called the Tender Mountain Poems. Right now, I'm hiking south with my typewriter, which weighs 10 pounds. In Europe, we'd say 5 or 6 kilos, which is heavy. It's one of the heaviest things I'm carrying. I have a backpack. I carry water and food and a tent. I sleep outside mostly. Last night I got to sleep in a refuge, which was really fantastic. I got good food and wine, so that was kind of special, and met some new friends. So my project, Tender Mountain Poems, let's see. I applied for a residency in Switzerland, and I was rejected. But the residency was in a place that was near a mountain, and I had an idea, if I got the residency, that I would hike up and down the mountain every day with a typewriter and writing poems, and collect those into a little book of poems, and possibly do some meditating on the mountain and see what kind of poetry the mountain inspired in me. Not having gotten that residency, I thought of other ways to do it, and the more I researched, I found that there was a very long trail that went pretty close to that mountain called the Gr5, the Grand Randonnée 5. And I tried to think of ways that I could adapt my project so that I could do a long walk to Monttendre in the Swiss Jura and walk away from the mountain to the north, to the Mediterranean. And so that's what I'm doing now. It was election night in the United States not so long ago, and I was feeling nervous, worried, anxious, like many of my friends, and in sort of disbelief, I went walking around the neighborhood thinking, how is it that I was a part of making this moment happen in history? What did I say yes to? What did I say no to? Were they the wrong things? How did I create this world if this world is a dream that I dreamt, an idea? And what can I do to change this? I need to change this because it's not what I want. It's not the world that I want to live in. And I know how hard it is to change myself and how easy it is to want to change everything around me. Like, oh, that person's wrong and this situation is wrong and couldn't they be different? So the motivation was to change myself, to see if I could do one thing, just change one thing. And that's the object behind this project, is to arrive in a place, prepare to arrive in a place, and when I get to that place, sit down and change one thing about myself. And that place for me was going to be Tender Mountain, Monttendre in the Swiss Jura. It's the highest mountain in the Swiss Jura. It's about midway between the North Sea and the Mediterranean, and the goal was to get there, and it would take a long time to get there, to sit down, to meditate, change one thing about myself. And so things built around that idea. I started with the question, if you could change just one thing about yourself, knowing that this one thing would change for everyone, everywhere, if you changed it in yourself, what one thing would you change? And with that question in mind for me, I came up with an answer pretty quickly. For me, it meant I needed to learn to love myself. And I asked that question to other people, to artists, to friends, and invited them to think about that, and after thinking about it, to write a letter to themselves, to their own tender heart, and then to give me the letters, and I would bring them on this journey. And every day I would open one letter and write on my machine d'écrire, my typewriter, afterwards, respond to that letter. And that would help to prepare me as well, all these people really looking at themselves while I'm looking at myself. And so that's what I've been doing, writing every day and thinking about that change, arriving on the mountain, seeing what it means to make that change, and now having arrived Mont Tendre, finishing the work by walking to the sea and then releasing all those people and all those hearts that I'm carrying with me. And it's been quite a journey. I began as a poet, and I, at some point, become a performance artist because it's important for me to be in the public, around people, and getting a response to my work, having dialogue. So performance art for me is about practicing, about doing. And so as it's happening, the transformation is happening for me and for my public. That's really the important thing. When it's happening, it's happening. And there are products, of course, when we make work. For this project, a book of poems, hopefully, called the Tender Mountain Poems, which I will share with people who contributed letters and little bits of money to help me on my journey. But the main thing is really self-transformation. That's pretty much what most of my work is about. A search for home, that home being spiritual, physical, home in a community, a home as an artist, but change. And the question of what one thing would you change came back to me by several people as the wish not to change, which to me, of course, is a change in itself. That I don't want to change, that I love myself just as I am, and of course, that is one huge answer that I accept. Another answer that I accept is that I'm present here in my body. So certainly a sense of being aware and enlightened is a big part of it. That's, I think, what love ends up being, is being really here and open to what is, and not knowing what your story is. So for me, walking the Gr5, a lot of times you know a lot about what's going on. You're just looking for the trail markers. They're red and white blazes on the trail, and you're looking for them. And they've sort of become, for me, a kind of sensei when I see them. Oh yes, I'm on the trail. Thank you, thank you. And experiencing gratitude along my day for water, for the weather, for the food that comes when I need it, for this beautiful world that we live in, for being safe, for passing through landscape that isn't mine, and being allowed to sleep. And open. I think in the mountains you just open. There's space. And time. There's so much time. In the city we lose our time with our jobs and our families and the piles of things that we're going to do. It's so nice to come to a place for so long, 70 days, my journey, and feel like one day feels like 4 or 5 days, you know, and it's hard to remember 3 days ago what village you were in because it feels like it was weeks ago. So self-transformation, and part of the transformation, I think, is also finding time and space to be who I am and to hear myself. The kind of art I make begins with a question, an idea, and I begin the work, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't necessarily, maybe I think it's going to be a book of poems, and it actually ends up being a book of questions, or it ends up answering a question that I didn't even have before. I learned so much when I set out to fulfill a project of mine. So I had this project idea to walk from the North Sea to the Mediterranean with a typewriter, writing poems and preparing to make a change, and inviting people in by asking them to write letters. I didn't know how hard it would be to get a map of Holland or of Belgium or of Europe along my journey. I tried before I left the United States to get the French maps that I would need, and I wasn't successful online doing that. So I thought, oh, I'll get them when I arrive. Well, no. So for the first month, I had no map. And I bought an old bicycle in Holland and bicycled for the first 3 weeks with the backpack and the typewriter. Very heavy, old bicycle, braking every day. Much easier to walk, I think. But an experiment that happened without an intention for it to happen was that I was lost a lot. And maybe it's a very good thing as you're going to transform and open your heart and prepare to change, that you realize that you're lost all the time. Because being lost means that you need help. And I'm a person in life that likes to be very independent and not ask for help. If my car breaks, which I don't have a car now, but if something breaks, I will walk 10 miles before I ask for help. I can do it by myself. But I found myself so lost that I was constantly asking for help. Excuse me, do you know where the GR5 is? Do you know how to get to? I had a rough map of towns, and I knew I needed to go south and southeast a lot of the time. So every day, because I needed help, people were coming to help me. It was really amazing. I met so many beautiful people in every country that I went through, and I went through probably 5 countries now. People came to help me. Like that truly impressed me. Not only that I needed to be open to this, but that people were open to me when I was open to them. So it never failed that I felt so grateful for the guidance that I got along the way. People gave me food. They bicycled with me to show me where the trail was. They said, oh, have you seen the Abbey? Let's spend an hour. I will show you this beautiful thing in my town. And I always said yes, like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And if I was really, really lost and there was no one around, I would find a place to sit down and have a glass of wine, which I probably only had maybe 6 or 7 glasses of wine in the 70 days that I've been here. But that always solved the problem. Something happened. The waiter came out and told me there's a hostel 5 minutes away. And I thought, oh my God, I've arrived in this tough town at 7 p.m. and I don't know where I'm staying, and maybe I'm going to sleep under the bridge. Things always worked out. And so I learned to trust the path, and to trust that the things that needed to happen were going to happen. And of course, there was a lot of discomfort. There was rain, and there were thunderstorms, and I was wet for long periods of time, and my feet got shriveled up, and I felt sad at times. And the letters were certainly a huge support for me. To open a letter and to hear someone tell me how they wished they loved themselves more, or they wished they would do the things that they needed to do and wake up and really live their lives. Made me just want to love them. And at some point, I think I was heading to Tender Mountain, and then everything changed, and I decided now is the time that I'm going to put all the love that I have for these people who wrote me letters, and I'm going to turn it on myself and see myself from outside as somebody who really deserves love, as somebody who is sweet and generous and beautiful and kind, and why wouldn't I deserve all the love that all these people around me deserve, in my opinion. So a couple of things I haven't talked about. My costume, la robe à pois, my polka dotted dress. Sometimes when I begin a work, I have images that I know I need to fulfill, and I don't know why, but I knew I needed a polka dot dress. I also knew I needed red hair. My hair is not usually red, and I've never colored my hair before, but I knew I needed red hair for this project, and I knew I needed a typewriter. And I think I knew these things because the project had a sort of femininity to it that my work has never had before. There was something feminine in this work. The tenderness, I think, that I needed to experience and that I was walking towards felt feminine. The typewriter feels heroic and poetic and romantic. And these things are outward symbols that I think have softened people and let people into my work. As a performance artist, you don't want to hide. You want people to see you, and you want to be able to dialogue about what you're doing. And so everyone saw the typewriter and said, what are you doing with a typewriter in the mountains? Nobody talked about the dress, but I'm pretty sure that the dress was the backdrop for this. And so this invitation, I think, is part of the way that we're going to meet our society and how they're going to feel about us and how we're going to feel about them. in a little town of one, Labarge, that I walked through not so long ago. I met a man, a beautiful man named Eli, a helicopter pilot. It was the first church in the last 2 weeks that has been not locked, has been open. Before that, all the churches were open, no matter how big, small, along the way. They were always open. It didn't matter how old they were or what kind of artworks were inside. And I noticed that change as I was walking along, like, the churches are all locked. I wonder why. I once asked, and a man came and opened the church for me. But Eli and I talked about this, and he said to me that he worked very hard to keep this little chapel, tiny little chapel, Chapel of Our Lady of the Snow, I think it was called. And it was important. He said the reason that the churches are closed is because we're close to the Mediterranean and people have fear. And I've been thinking about, of course, fear and tenderness and an open heart and yeah, need and helping one another. And he said something very significant, which was an open door shows confidence, and confidence is power. And confidence inspires confidence in other people. So when we have an open door, we're inviting people to feel confident themselves and to show respect and feel respect. So that open door certainly is the interior door, right? Our heart. So how I feel is that I still get upset and irritated and angry. And why are these churches closed? And I don't like you people. No. How do I hold on to the tender feelings that I have generated and felt along the journey for all the people and all the letters that have brought me to tears and the generosity of the people who have helped me? How do I hold on to that when I come into the village where there are closed hearts? That's the challenge now, is to take this long journey, which has certainly transformed me. I've seen a different way of living. You know, in the United States, things that I'm doing here, I might not do there because I would feel less safe. I would be more alert. Beautiful people in the United States for sure, but just a different sense of community here, caring for one another, seeing one another, recognizing that I'm a white woman of European descent, for sure, and that I would have a different experience if I weren't. But still being someone in need and someone easily passed over. You know, what are you doing here? You look homeless. You need something, and we don't have anything. Go away. I've certainly experienced places where nobody notices me and nobody cares, and what am I doing? I have doubt. But moreover, feeling generosity and feeling as if I generate that by having the open door, by being confident, and knowing that we need to support that in one another. I need to support it in you, and you need to support it in me in order to have a healthy mentality, emotional life, and real physical life on earth here.